welcome to another live stream. I'm starting a series of more, I don't know, academically oriented talks this week. So Professor Korn is in. As a disclaimer, I do not have like actual academic qualifications. I never even went to college. I got kicked out of high school and got my GED while I was blackout drunk. So, whatever. Um, that being said, I am a queer person, a bona fide, real live queer person, not an academic, not a liberal, not a PC fucking cuck, whatever the kids are saying these days. But I have spent the better part of the last 10 years surrounded by tons of literature. As you can see, I work in anarchist libraries, and I spend a lot of time thinking about stuff, especially when it pertains to queer ideology, because I myself had to spend a lot of time thinking about what it is that I feel, how to identify what things mean, and just reflecting on myself personally, like what am I? What is anything? And kind of not only trying to figure out who I am, but how to communicate it to others in a way that makes sense, rather than just like, like a lot of times you'll hear people say like, oh, it's just my pronouns, it's just my identity, just respect it, and it's just how I feel, and if you don't, then my feelings will be hurt and whatever. And like, yeah, that's not untrue, but also I think that there is a little bit more of a concrete way of understanding a person's identity as it pertains to gender versus biological sex. And I say biological sex because, like, academically speaking, that kind of doesn't mean a whole lot either. I mean, there's like, you're born assigned a gender based on, a doctor looks at your junk and they're like, yo, that's a dick, that's a guy, and yo, that's a vagine, that's a lady, and fucking stamp it on your forehead, send you out into society, and then you fill that role. But it's not quite as cut and dry. There's a lot of people that are born with what's called, oh fuck, ambiguous genitalia and organs, and some people are born with, like, you can't even like tell what it is. It's not like male or female sexual organs, or they might have like internal organs that don't match their assigned gender, or their chromosomes don't match their assigned gender. And I suspect that as there is more funding that goes into gender studies, and that, as more people take transgender identities seriously in the future, hopefully, knock on wood, that we'll find out that there's a little bit more to it than just how you feel inside. It Unfortunately, there's our society is woefully underprepared to deal with these things as they're emerging. And it, for some of those older folks that, and I say older, like, you're not that old, don't worry about it, but some folks that were already an adult 10 years ago grew up and became an adult without ever even having these types of conversations. So to a lot of people, this is all new shit. But before I get into it, I'm gonna just let some folks trickle in, and yeah, so class is in session. I'm gonna give the latecomers a minute here, and I'm gonna drink my coffee and hopefully not get too caffeinated. I'm already feeling plenty fucking caffeinated. But there's there's a lot to cover here, and I'm gonna try and do it in as comprehensible of a way as I can. And for those of you who are um for those of you who are already like who are in the queer and you've spent a lot of time contemplating who you are, and you know the terminology, and not just the terminology but also the ideas behind the terminology, then this video is not like for you like it is for you. If you're one of those people and you think that I'm not covering a topic well enough, or you think I should add something, or maybe I'm not representing the idea as well as I could, then call me out in chat and fucking add your 2 cents. You are guest professors here. And for those of you who have no fucking idea, you don't even know what the difference is between biological sex and gender identity and sexuality, then this video is for you, because we're just going over the basics here. I have a lot of friends that are elders that I've tried to well, let's back up here. I have a lot of friends who are elders who have asked me these questions, and at the time when they asked me about what's the difference between pronouns and physical sex and who you're attracted to, and like a lot of times when they come to me with these questions, I just don't have the time or the energy to like stop everything and explain the basics to them, because it's a lot, and it's like, of course I want to explain this to you and help you to understand, but like I'm in the middle of something here and I'm trying to do some shit, or maybe I'm like fucking fucked up or something. A lot of times old timers will approach me at like the worst times, like I'm fucking half drunk and you know like trying to flirt with some babe or something. you know and they'll be like, hey Corin, I'm sorry I misgendered you earlier, but I'm not really sure about this or that, could you please explain? And I'll be like, shit, yeah, I guess. But then, of course, I'm not in the right headspace for it. So I'm just doing this video so that next time that happens, I can be like, actually, I've done this fucking talk and it's online, and I'll send you the link to it so that you can watch it. So, yeah, anyway. Fucking A. So, I guess let's just clear some things up, okay? And I've already mentioned that gender and sexuality are different things, but let's get into it. So sexuality is what turns you on, right? Like your sexuality is defined by you and only you. In the past, you may have learned falsely that since the dawn of time, men and women were designed for each other, and there were roles set before them by the powers that be, and it's always been important for millennia that men do this thing and women do this thing, and it's very important that they do this, and it's ingrained in our nature, and blah blah. Actually, that's all false. That was all written by people who have an interest in perpetuating our ignorance as citizens. Now, step back before we get into that. If you want to make academic arguments about shit you learned in school, like elementary and middle and high school, back in the fucking 70s or whatever, whenever you went to those things, all of that information, take that and crumple it up into a little ball, really, really tight, and smash it into and fucking chuck it out the fucking window, because that was all wrong. And you need to keep in mind that our education system is garbage, and that people are running around with fucking noodles in their fucking heads because they were taught wrongly, and now they still carry that information into adulthood. So yeah. If unless you personally studied gender and biology and endocrinology, you don't know jack shit about any of that. Um, and your understanding probably goes as far as fifth grade level, where penis goes in vagina and we make babies, and that's our purpose. Yeah, that's all very, very silly. It's like, fucking, it's like baby understanding of biology. And I'm not a biologist or an endocrinologist or a fucking uh, gender philosopher, whatever the fuck. I'm just a trans person that thinks a lot and lives in libraries and reads a lot. Um, so the whole gender role thing, and like assigned, like where it's like men and women belong together and men do these things and women do these things, like that is actually a pretty new set of concepts that was perpetuated by well, Christianity, for one. Christianity came in and tried to like normalize everything. So if you ever get hung up on fucking libtards trying to normalize everything, well, remember that um, that the Christians came and normalized a bunch of weird shit that nobody actually gave a shit about in the first place, like, the women's role, subjugation of members of our society, etc. Whereas before Christianity kind of took everything over, there was many different ways of thinking about gender roles, and there still is. There's tons, like in Thailand, they have like, I want to say like 14 different gender, like recognized gender roles and identities, anywhere between like, your traditional binary of like regular man and woman, and then you got like lady boys and masculine women, and you've got trans men and trans women, and like all these other fucking identities in between. In tribes before Christianity kind of took over and like threw everybody's history into the toilet, there were and still are tons of societies that were like matriarchal, which means women were the dominant gender. And in indigenous tribes, they recognized two spirit people, which were people that were born with a certain set of genitalia, and identified more with people who take on roles that coincide with their other set of genitalia, and that was perfectly fine and normal. There were many people born identified male that would take on the role of a woman within their society. But like, they didn't think about it like that. It was just like, this is a person and this is who they are. Like, it wasn't taking on the role of a woman. That was just their role. So there's nothing like inherent about men and women's roles in society. I guess that's so what I'm trying to say is your physical sex is not defined. It does not define your gender identity. And nobody's trying to argue that like you can become the opposite sex. These are all dated terms. Nobody's trying to become the opposite sex. It's everybody knows what a trans man is. It's a man that probably has a vagina, like, to be straight up. And I'm not trying to be PC here. I'm not trying to be politically correct here. I'm trying to explain it in plain fucking English for all y'all that may be in places that aren't exactly the cradle of culture. You know what I mean? I'm talking to you fuckers, and it honestly, like, I'm kind of talking to like a lot of my family who lives in rural areas, and a lot of folks that I know and hold dear to my heart, that just I just haven't had the opportunity to explain this to. um, so physical sex and gender identity. Two separate, completely separate categories, okay? A trans woman is a woman, but she's a trans woman. So there's like a distinction. You know, she's not trying to say that she's biologically female or was born with a vagina. Nobody's trying to say that. Girls can have dicks. It's just, you know, it's just nature, baby. Facts don't care about your feelings. So one thing that a lot of people get confused about when I start talking about gender and pronouns, and I'm going to get to the pronouns in a sec. And I just want to get this out of the way, clear it up. A lot of old timers think that sexuality has something to do with gender identity, and they'll say things to me like, "Oh, just because you like women doesn't mean you have to be a man." And yes, that's absolutely correct. Just because you like women doesn't mean that you have to be a man. Lesbians exist, and that's a perfectly valid identity. And gay men exist. Like, who you get turned on by doesn't affect what your gender identity. There's tons of trans people who find that they're actually gay. So a lot of people think that's really weird because they're operating on a false premise, which means like the basis of their understanding is faulty. So that's why they're getting confused. And they're like, wait, so you became a man just so you could be gay? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why didn't you stay a woman so you could be straight? And like, that's not how it works, bud. Yeah. So, you know, if you can understand that who you're attracted to doesn't affect what your gender identity is, then that's not important. Like, that's not confusing at all. You're like, oh, you're a trans man, and you like men. Okay, cool, makes perfect sense. But if you're operating on a false pretense, thinking that like, you know, who you're attracted to means something about your gender, then if you think that people should be straight, then yeah, you're going to be confused because you're already confused. Normalizing heteronormativity is what it's called. So when you assume that the default of human sexuality is being straight, then you're starting off already confused because that's not a fact. There is no inherent like, there's no default sexuality. Being straight was normalized over the last, you know, 100 200 years because of religion. And yeah, I think when you get down to it, it's all because of really like the Christian church trying to dominate the world with its religion. And then of course Eurocentrism, which means Eurocentrism means just taking for granted that European culture, ancestry, and history is the default. You know, like assuming that straightness is the default. Like, you're operating on a completely incorrect assumption. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to get into this. I'm going to check into chat and see what people are saying. Make sure you're following me. Make sure I'm not being confusing here. Okay, Andy PDX is asking, is gender identity something we choose or not something we choose? It's not a choice. Like, you just kind of know. For me personally, I remember growing up and not feeling like a girl and not identifying. Like, I always wanted to do traditionally boy stuff, and I wanted to hang out with boys and be treated like a boy, and it just like was a thing. Everybody knew it was true. Like, it, you know, it was just like an accepted thing, and people were fine with that. they just kind of, saw me as like a tomboy or something. I didn't have to wear dresses if I didn't want to. Sometimes I did because, like, um, gendered modes of dress are completely a cultural construct. It has nothing to do with actual gender expression. And, regardless of if you're a boy or a girl or a non-binary person, which I'll get to later, talking about non-binary gender identities. You know, that's intermediate. But it's got not like how everybody wants to look pretty sometimes, and everybody wants to look tough sometimes. It's not a fucking inherent masculine or feminine thing. Actually, well, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So a person, I don't think that a person would ever like consciously choose to be transgender. That's like a lot. Being a trans person is extremely dangerous in this society and most societies, and it's difficult. Like, you don't choose it. It's just like it from around the time puberty hits, because your body starts developing in ways that make you feel weird, and you're like, yo, something's not right. Like, I'm growing boobies, and this doesn't feel right. So then every day when you look in the mirror and see yourself getting further and further into the wrong puberty, you start to get what is known as gender dysphoria, which dysphoria means a disconnect between what you feel and what you see in the mirror. So as I grew up and started going through female puberty, it was very weird. I had a lot of dysphoria. I would cry a lot. Um, like when we would go out and like go clothes shopping, it was always an ordeal for me because sitting in the dressing room and like trying on outfit after outfit and just like seeing myself in the mirror, it kind of freaked me out and like made me feel really, really uncomfortable. And I had nobody back then to explain to me what was really going on. And I went to like therapy a bunch, but they didn't know what was going on either because back when I was growing up, like there were no trans aware therapists, or at least even if there were, my parents weren't about to be taking me to those because they didn't believe in uh, like any of that back then. They didn't even like allow gay behavior, gay questioning. Like they legit almost put my little brother in the gay conversion camp and me, but I was already running away from home at that point. So like if they knew that if they had tried to like sign me up for gay conversion camp, I would just leave and never come back. you know, yeah, by a young age, I was like pretty self-sufficient and pretty comfortable with just jumping out the fucking window and leaving. Um, so yeah, gender identity is not something you choose. Like for those of you who are cisgender means that you were born with a set of genitalia and organs that reflects the role in society that you've been assigned. So if you're a guy, you were born with a dick and balls, and you're like, yeah, I'm a guy. Like, you've never had to think about it in your whole fucking life. Um, like, you didn't choose to be a dude. You just are one, and you know that. But the advantage for you is that you live in a society that recognizes that. So you just kind of take it for granted. You're a cis male, and some dudes get like really fucking upset because they're like, don't call me cis, I'm just a man. It's like, no, you're a cis man. It's worth noting for utility purposes. And it's important to recognize people's gender identity for utility purposes. That's why, if like say there's an important situation involving some people, like maybe somebody's hurt and the person, or let's say we're looking for somebody and somebody is asking me to describe that person, I will say, this person is AMAB in appearance, which means that's assigned male at birth. Or I might say it looks, this person appears to be a cis male with brown hair or whatever. Or this person appears to be a trans woman with whatever, wearing a blue shirt, et cetera, et cetera. Or this person appears to be AFAB, which is assigned female at birth. Just like as descriptors, there's no reason to be afraid to describe people, which a lot of people get hung up on. And if you know the proper terminology to recognize and acknowledge people, then there is a lot of utility to it. There, it's not confusing. We got, I'm catching up in chat here. Let's see. Obscurity Master says masculine dresses should be a thing. Hey, any dress is masculine if it fits you, man. You go forth and slay, brother. Actually, that's a fun little tangent that I was going to go on. So for the longest time, I only wore men's clothes. And it wasn't until I started hanging out with these men, cisgender men, who liked to cross dress. And they were like masculine dudes, but every now and then you'd catch one of them in a fucking gorgeous tea dress. And that's when I was like, you know what? If these dudes can fucking look killer in a fucking tea dress, like I can wear a fucking skirt. So actually, yeah, I started wearing traditionally feminine clothes again because of hanging out with men that would cross dress. The Swede says, for being cis hetero, I have found I'm very motherly. That's awesome. Yeah, you can be a cisgender man and be comfortable with being a man and do traditionally feminine things like being nurturing and cooking food for your family and cleaning the house and I think that's really sweet. You can be a man that's also a mom. Totally cool. Special ed accidentally got timed out, I guess. Sorry about that, buddy. I don't know what happened, but yeah, it seems like it's all good now. Shit. Sharon says maybe our kids need a transgender person to work in the school, someone for them to talk to. Yeah, maybe you should. But you know what? You hire a trans person in a school, and everybody flips a shit because this society is very transphobic right now, and it's dangerous just to be known. There are definitely teachers that are transgender out there that you wouldn't know, and it's for their safety. So if you know that somebody is transgender and they like pass, so passing means that if you are a transgender person, but in society, everybody like nobody would know. Like you look at this person and you would never think like that woman was born as a man. They just pass. They pass as cisgender. So if you know a passing transgender person, don't fucking out them. Like outing somebody is telling other people that this person is trans. You're literally putting their life in danger. Don't do that. If somebody trusts you enough to tell you that they're trans or to tell you what their dead name is, then just keep that to yourself. You know, be an ally. Don't out people because like literally trans people get killed every day. Tay 8000 asks, so do we all have to change how we describe ourselves now? Not just for people who feel differently. Sorry, I don't know how to phrase this. Well, there's just a few new terms to adopt. Like, don't assume other people's pronouns, which I still haven't gotten to pronouns yet, but like, well, I guess I might as well get to that. But first, I'm going to try and answer your question. Yeah, like, language is evolving. A lot of people will say, like, oh, that's just made up, that's not real. And I got a fucking news flash for you. All words are made up. We made them all up. So language evolves. It's been evolving since we started speaking in ooga boogas and ug ugs. Okay. So now we're at a point where, yeah, it is important to note your own descriptors. Like, if I would say I am a trans masculine non-binary person. I am pansexual, which means that I am attracted to any and all genders. Like, it doesn't matter. I would even go further to say that I'm sapiosexual, even though that sounds a little convoluted, which means that I'm more attracted to a person's mind, and their body is kind of like secondary. Like, I'm sexually attracted to brains, like what's going on in your fucking head. And if you got whatever junk you got going on, we can figure that out. you know it don't matter. Like, we'll figure it out, baby. um but there's also, like, pan and bi kind of go sort of hand in hand. Bisexual is another way to recognize that you are into, like, bisexual kind of connotates being attracted to two genders. And it's a little touchy. In my opinion, I think it's a little dated, but I can't really define what being bisexual means because I'm not bisexual, I'm pansexual. Traditionally, it's meant that you're attracted to the two genders, which now we know that there are more than two genders. So now it just means that you're attracted to two genders, which could mean maybe, you're attracted to female, like, women and non-binary people of a certain flavor. I don't know. Or maybe you're attracted to women and men. And then also that means you can be attracted to anything in between. So, a lot of these terms are being worked on. A lot of people are having a lot of conversations, people that are smarter than me too, and have a lot more background in these studies. Noah is asking, is cis an abbreviation? Yes, I said earlier cisgender. So that means you identify as the gender that the doctors said you were when they looked at your genitals when you were born. Sapphire says, that makes sense, Corin. Okay, I'm not sure what you're referring to because I'm a little behind in the chat, but I'm glad that people are following along somewhat. Elizabeth Jarima just said something cool about the etymology of cis and trans. Latin roots, cis means on this side, trans means on the other side. Very interesting. I didn't know that. Very interesting. Wow, there's a lot of fucking comments. Holy shit, I'm struggling to keep up to date. I'm trying to answer questions as they roll in, but I'm a little behind here. Oh yeah, I'm sure my mods are fucking swamped right now. Sorry guys, I knew this would be a fucking clusterfuck. So if people are being like outright hateful in chat, then you can just like mute them or time them out if you think there's hope for them. If people are just ignorant and not meaning anything by it, even if they are being offensive, give them a chance. Like unless they're trying to argue about it, but like we're here to learn, and the people that are the least educated about this topic are the people that I'm trying to address here, because it occurs to me that there is a lot of confusion surrounding a lot of the things that I say on my channel, because unlike a lot of queer channels, my channel is not oriented in that way. I don't make videos specifically for people that are already educated on this, like a lot of people do. I just make videos, and the fact that I'm a trans person and that I'm a queer person um, is kind of secondary to like what I'm doing in my life. Like I tend to focus more on my adventures, and that's what I would like to do. But you know, so a lot of people that live in a cis-normative, heteronormative world, and they are cisgender and heterosexual, they're all like, oh, why do you have to make your sexuality the focal point of everything? Like, why do you gotta make it all about that? And it's like, well, I don't. You do. You make it all about that because you get all triggered by the fact that I don't fit into your narrow world understanding that you've never had to question, and that nobody has questioned for you, and that you just take for granted, and live your simple cisgender hetero life. I don't. Like, the only reason I'm doing this talk is because y'all are uneducated about it and ignorant on it, and you've made it a problem for me and people like me. So that's why I'm talking about this. I wish that I didn't have to do this week of streams about transgender issues, ideology, queer issues and ideology, but it's become obvious that I'm going to have to do this in order for us to all be on the same page here. And I've watched a lot of other people talk about queer stuff, and like while they do make very comprehensive videos and they're correct on like most things, it's kind of inaccessible to people that aren't college age liberals and going to school and like in a city where there's tons of culture and they take it for granted, and most folks respect pronouns, etc. So they live in a queer normative sort of bubble, which I envy. Honestly, I don't live in a queer normative bubble. Now, if you're all paying attention, you know what normative means. You know what normativity means now because I explained it earlier in the stream. That's normalizing things. That's when we think of things as normal. It's not like a conversation. It's not a question. So if you live in a heteronormative environment, that means that you live in a world where being a heterosexual is just like standard for you, which it's not. And living in that kind of world is detrimental for people like me because I grew up in that kind of a world, and I was very suicidal for a long time. I did self-harm. I ran away from home. I got into drugs, and just did a bunch of unsafe shit. And because the world that I grew up in didn't leave any space for people like me and was hostile to people like me. So that's why we need to work on it, and we need to leave space for other people. And yeah. So I wasn't going to bring this up in this stream, but I'm going to. So the last stream that I did, I was talking about the Poe case. And if you're not up to date on that, then I would suggest going and looking at those. That's what spurred this series of talks this week. So while I was talking about Poe and his murder, a bunch of trolls came into chat and started telling me to 41% myself. So at first I didn't really know what that meant, but the way, in context, I was like, okay, I think these kids are telling me to kill myself, I think. And then, some of my mods pointed out, like, yeah, 41% is the number of transgender people that kill themselves. So, yeah, a bunch of people came into my chat about a young trans man who was brutally murdered and were telling me to kill myself because I'm trans. So that's fucked up. But also, like, let's back up a little bit here. The number of transgender people that kill themselves is 41%. I believe that's the highest rate of any demographic, which is crazy. And the reason for this is because they grow up in a world that is violent to them. Studies show and statistics show that when a person that is queer grows up in a household where they are accepted for who they are, that number dramatically drops. Like, it's incredible. But when you live in a world that is hostile to you for the way that you were born, and the way that you are inside and can't change or help, in a world that tells you that your identity isn't valid, that you're not real, that there's something wrong with you, then eventually all of those people telling you all of those things build up inside of you, and you think, like, yeah, there is something wrong with me. I'm a problem. I'm an inconvenience to this world. I should just go. And that's why it's important that we have these kinds of talks. I'm going to catch up in chat and see what folks are saying. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm going to get to... Oh, Philip says, I'm a hetero-flexible cis man. Nice buzzword. There we go. Hetero-flexible means that you're mostly heterosexual, but sometimes you're looking at dudes like, look at that piece of man meat right there. Or, whatever. Yeah, I like that you brought that up. That's very cool. Yeah, it's awesome to be aware of these terms. Like, it can bring you a lot more self-acceptance and understanding that can help with things that you got going on in your head, or like depression and stuff too. So I'm going to get into pronouns. You fucking cucks ready to get triggered by pronouns? All right, let's do it. So we've got the pronouns. There's he, there's her, and there's them. Oh, there's a third pronoun. Holy shit. All right, I know it's a lot to wrap your fucking head around, but we're gonna dig into it, okay? Okay? So, when some people like to be, some people don't feel any sort of connection to being called she, her, or he, him. And none of those kind of resonate with them, so they want to be called them. And you'll notice that this entire time I've been talking, I've been using they, them pronouns. If you didn't catch that since the beginning, I encourage you to go back and watch this video in its entirety after it's done and listen to how I use they and them to describe specific, like, non-specific people. So when you don't know a person, especially like, maybe somebody you haven't met, there's a good demonstration about it. And I'll get into what they, thems are in a minute, but you don't need to understand what they, thems are in order to use they, them pronouns. So let's say you're on a public bus and somebody left their phone on the seat, and you're like, oh shit, somebody left their phone here. I wonder who left it. I hope that they're still on the bus. If they're not, then I would hope that I can turn it in so that this person can get their phone back. And it's not hard. It's, we use they them pronouns all the time to describe people that we don't know. And if you don't know somebody, like a person that's over there right in front of you and you've never met them, you don't know what their pronouns are, just, default to they them, because you don't know. You can't tell by looking at a person either. Um, you don't know, and it's kind of weird and rude to assume what somebody's packing in their pants, aside from the fact that transgender identities exist. Now, you can be transgender and be a they them, or you can not be transgender and be a they them. Some people are perfectly comfortable with their role in society and how people perceive them as their assigned gender, but they just don't like pronouns, like specific pronouns, because they don't believe in gender constructs or whatever, and that's perfectly valid. Some people are comfortable being he, him, and they, them, or she, her, and they, them. They don't care. But some people are trans non-binary, like myself, and they consider themselves trans and identify under that umbrella term, but they are non-binary trans. In my case, I'm trans masculine non-binary, like I said earlier. So that means that I was born assigned female at birth, and I identify more with a masculine social role. So I like being treated like a dude, even in high school, my friends were like, yeah, you're an honorary sausage. So if you're at a party with all of our dude friends, it's still a sausage fest, Yeah, I was kind of an honorary bro, and that's cool with me. I have spent a lot of time considering whether I'm just a trans man, and I've thought and thought and thought about it till I was fucking blue in the face, and never really came to a conclusion that that's what I want to be. I'm pretty comfortable with trans masculine non-binary, and things change, understandings of oneself change over time as well. But I've been pretty comfortable in that role and identity for like 10 years now, so I don't think that it will change. Some people are gender fluid, and they are comfortable with being a they, them, but also like to be recognized as in some instances and masculine in other instances. And some people are cisgender, but when they're in drag, they like to be referred to as the with the pronouns of the gender that they're embodying and expressing. So a lot of drag queens, I think all drag queens, when they're in drag, they are she, her. And same goes for drag kings. When they're in drag, they're he, him. But when they're not in drag, they are, identified as their cis gender. So that's that. And then some people are like just gender chaos, right? And sometimes they're she, her, sometimes they're he, him, sometimes they're they, them, or maybe they don't give a fuck and they're any of those pronouns, and it's whatever. So pronouns are a social construct designed for utility in society when connotating roles that one plays a part in this construct that we have and that we live in. So, but some people are just gender fucks and they don't care about any of that. They don't care about utility or, whatever. And that's totally fine too. All right, I'm going to take a minute here and I'm going to let y'all ask some questions. If you have some questions about any of the things that I've gone over, please ask your questions now. I'm going to drink some of this fucking shitty energy drink and, get the fucking shakes because I'm very over caffeinated right now. I have just talked for over 50 minutes now. I'm pretty happy with that, pretty proud of that. Um, I was I was wondering if I was going to keep up this energy for the entire hour, and shit, I feel like I could talk for a whole another hour about this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep these talks to an hour each. So yeah, now is your time for questions. Also, I do have a they them T-shirt. If you're another themby, another gentle them or theydy, uh, or whatever, their Royal Highness, go and get yourself a T-shirt that says they them. So that way, next time somebody fucks up your pronouns, you can just point to your shirt and be like, "Yo, yo." Yeah. Also, if you would like to kick down, I could definitely use some funds. I'm doing okay for now. Oh, hey, Noah Heezer just kicked down. Thank you so much. Styles kicked down. Thank you so much. You guys are the fucking bee's knees. Uh-huh. I love it. Thank you. Yeah, I could use it. There are also statistics about transgender people living in poverty. I'm not going to play the world's tiniest violin about all that right now, but suffice it to say, give me money, fuck you, pay me. These lessons are donation based. I'm not going to twist your non-binary testicles in a bunch over it, but yeah, this is an inclusive hassling. Oh yeah. Timothy Cavallari says, I'm going to get you an honorary bro t-shirt. Nah, man, I just wear the bro shirts. Captain says, you rock, Corn Daddy. Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Lodi says, I've been looking forward to this. Fuck yeah, Lodi. I know you have. I'm into it. Noah Heezer says, what's the best practice for pronouns? I'm a foot in the mouth guy and apparently piss people off with zero intentions of doing so. That's okay, man. As long as you're trying. So I guess what a lot of people will do is that they'll try to get the pronouns right without actually understanding that the person that they're referring to has a gender identity attached to those pronouns. So it helps if you can actually see that person as they see themselves. Like, let's say you have a trans man friend. And I'm talking about trans men because I notice that a lot of people, when they're talking about transgender transgender identities, they always default to trans women. And I've spent a lot of time trying to unpack why that is specifically. I think it's got something to do with like patriarchy and misogyny cultivating into this clusterfuck that is trans women. No offense, ladies. I love you. You know I love you. But I think that's why you always get thrown under the bus in these discussions. So I'm like, okay, so let's say you have a trans man friend and you are having trouble not calling him a her. So the reason for this, that you're having trouble remembering his pronouns, is because you're not seeing him as a man and you're not seeing him as the way that he sees himself. All you see is a walking pair of tits. You're just looking at like visual cues, and that can be very triggering for people. That can be very offensive to people. A lot of people, like, I got a big set of hooters, can't help it, born like that. So a lot of people will like take one look at it and be like, honey, girl, baby, lady. And it's like, yo, you're literally just talking to my tits right now. Like, you're not talking to me. You're talking to my tits and what you assume is my vagina. Like, that's not I'm a whole ass human being attached to those things, and I am a they them. You're not talking to my genitals or my organs. You're talking to me, Cornelius Van Gogh, with they them pronouns. or you're talking to your male friend, your trans male friend with the tits and the vagina, maybe in some cases. You know, regardless of surgery, you don't have to have physical surgery to be the gender identity that you identify as. Okay, like your genitals do not define your pronouns and your identity. So if you're having trouble with a friend's pronouns or with somebody's pronouns after they've told you like I'm a trans man, I'm a he him, then you're just not seeing him. You're not seeing his identity. You're just referring to his the organs that you assume that he has. You know what I mean? So does that help? Like, hack your brain, look a little bit deeper past, you know, past the skin and the organs at the actual human being that you're addressing. Okay? Try that. Elizabeth says, yes, it does. I'm glad that I could help a little bit. And if anybody has any more questions on that, if you would like me to clarify, I'm more than happy to expound on that. Elizabeth also says, this actually happened to me. It was on a deeper level, though. I could sense the femaleness in this trans man. Okay, I think you're confused. A trans man is a man that was born assigned female. Okay, so a trans man is not a man who is becoming a woman. A trans man is, this is not the politically correct way to say it, but is a woman that is becoming a man. Okay, like he was never a woman. He was identified by society as a woman and is a man and is working on making social and possibly medical transition to be as a man within society as well. Okay, so a trans man is a man probably with a vagina. Okay, and a trans woman is a woman probably with a cock. Okay, or you know, a lady dick, as it were. Yes, lady dick is a real thing. Andy PDX brings up a random question, just wondering about languages like Spanish, where every word is gendered, if I understand correctly. Yeah, actually, there are gender activists that are working on bringing awareness. I do not speak Spanish. Disclaimer, I speak enough to order tacos and be polite. But, and how to buy... I speak enough to buy tacos and drugs and be polite in the grocery store, okay? But yeah, everything in Spanish, as an example, there's other gendered languages too, like German is a very gendered language, where the word has a specific vowel at the end of it, or like you say the words differently depending on whether you're referring to a male or a female. In Spanish, there is a movement to neutralize it instead of an O or an A, because O is the masculine and A is feminine, to replace those with an E instead. So instead of Latina or Latino, you would say Latine. But, you know, I couldn't tell you how that's going. Sounds like a lot of people are adopting it, but that's like your whole ass language to adapt. That's, you know, that's a lot. And another thing that I didn't quite get to yet is that in a lot of places that are less developed than first world countries and don't have as much culture and awareness and education as a lot of places, being non-binary and being acknowledged for being non-binary is just really not an option. And in a lot of the world, like even when I'm going to the beet harvest, when I'm going to rural North Dakota to go and work in a fucking industrial yard, I'm not going to be fucking correcting people on my pronouns unless, of course, it becomes like a thing, or like I start talking to somebody and trying, you know, like somebody's trying to be my friend. Then I'm going to be like, all right, buddy, if you want to be my friend, like we just got to clear a few things up here. Or if somebody starts calling me like girl or something, then I will absolutely be like, bro, you can't fucking call me that. I'm just being real. You can't like just don't fucking address me like that. But in the interest of like the setting there, it's just really not practical for me to be like fucking like making a thing about it every time, because it's just not, you know, I'm not there to educate people. I'm there to fucking work and get that beat money. You know what I mean? And a lot of places in the world, like they still haven't even acknowledged that there's more than the gender binary. The gender binary being man and woman, which, you know, is an incomplete operating system. But yeah, a lot of people don't know it yet. So having your non-binary identity recognized or your trans identity recognized is a social privilege in a society that has gotten to the point where you can actually say shit like that without getting fucking killed immediately. Hopefully. I've definitely been in environments in the US where I felt that if I started talking about that sort of thing, then yeah, I would be putting myself in mortal danger. Noah says, thanks so much for this. When I got the notice you were doing this subject, I got excited as I knew you explained it without chastising and make it make some sense. Yeah, that's my goal. I'm speaking to you fucking plain English, working class motherfuckers. You might live in rural fucking buttfuck nowhere. Maybe you never went to college or, you know, whatever. Like, I'm here for you guys, like, on the real. Because, like, you know, people that, um, people that already know this stuff, like they oftentimes come from a privileged background, or they are trans themselves and had to learn all this shit in order to not fucking 41% themselves. You know what I'm saying? So for those of you folks that never were introduced to these concepts, yeah, this is for you, buddy. And I'm going to be doing this shit all week. So if you would like to help me eat this week, please feel free to throw some dollarinos in my fucking PayPal. Let me see if anybody else put something in there. Let's take a look. Stacy Markert, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And there is a Discord server. If you would like to join the Discord server and have some conversations about this further, then please do. Tay8000 is asking 41% themselves. That's a singular they. I'm just one person, so you wouldn't say themselves, you would say themself, like you would say himself or herself, right? A lot of people trip up over that. It's a singular they, not a plural they. And the reason I said that is because 41% of transgender people commit suicide. So that's what I meant by that. Join the Discord server. There's links in the description to stickers and t-shirts and my PayPal account and my Venmo. Now, please feel free to ask any more questions. I'm going to sit here for another minute and yeah, class is in session. We're wrapping up here. What do you got for me before I go? And if you're watching this video after it's gone live, feel free to leave a comment and ask any more questions that you might have. And if I don't answer you directly, then I'm sure some other folks will. Tay8000 says, damn, that's terrible. Yes, it is. And I was actually planning on doing a whole video just talking about that. We'll see if that happens. What else did I want to add? There's something else I wanted to add. Oh yeah, unrelated to the queer class that we're doing here, or these. I'm gonna be like pretentious as fuck and call them lectures or seminars. The queer seminars, the queer lectures. Aside from that, I just finished my very first freight riding video. And it's pretty great. Let me see. I'm gonna pull it up on my computer. I'm just gonna show you a little preview, a little taste of what's to come. And I don't know if I'm gonna upload this, like when I'm gonna upload this, but I don't know. Yeah, I've never put up a train video. I don't really know what like the rules are. I tried to be tasteful with it and not show too much. Oh yeah, here we go. So this is what I've been doing, kind of just sitting here working on this fucking video. Isn't that nice? Look at that beautiful footage. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. See, this is what I could be doing if I didn't have to do all this. You know, this is what I like to do and mean to do. Instead of making everything about gender identity. Yeah. But, you know, I'm happy to do this, and we're going to be doing this for the next week. Yeah, I got some really nice footage. I'm super stoked on it. And I definitely don't want to spoil it, but yeah. That's just a little preview of things to come. Yeah, I'm really excited to put that out. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. So, yeah, that's another thing. If you can show some support, then I could be doing more of that. And I'm going to check in and see. Rushan says, I have a very diverse family. I'm they, them. My oldest daughter is lesbian, and my middle daughter is bisexual. My younger child is transgender, female to male, and my granddaughter is transgender, male to female. Oh my God, that's so cool. Wow, what a diverse family. Lodi says, I have scars upon scars, no more 41% for me. I'm glad to hear that, Lodi. No more 41%. Don't do it. In a world that is actively trying to fucking annihilate your existence, existing and like thriving and self-care is an act of rebellion. So, yeah. Noah says, anything we can do to help promote your channels? Well, if you would like to, you can share this video, and maybe it can help other people in your life that don't know about all of this stuff. And we'll hear it from a grungy street punk that don't give a fuck about being politically correct. Maybe they'll hear it from somebody like that rather than some academic with a bunch of fancy ass words and a college degree waving their finger at them, telling them they're being bad for not, for not knowing shit about pronouns. You know what I mean? All right, so hit the like button, folks. I need some thumbs up here. I need some validation. Validate me, appreciate me. I want to see those thumbs up going up. Join me in the Discord server if you would like to. Get down with the kick down, buy my shit, and I will see you throughout this week. We will be having more talks like this. This is just a primer, okay? All right, we got some shit to talk about this week. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me. And take care of yourselves. Take care out there. Okay, bye-bye.